Sergey.
Hello, Panos.
Sergey, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. How are you doing?
Likewise, I'm doing good.
Good.
As they say here, if I was any better, I'd be you.
Nice. Glad to hear that, man. Uh, Sergey, you're calling us from, I think, Silicon Valley, I think, right? California.
Yeah, I'm currently based in Mountain View.
Man, that's amazing. So thank you very much for taking the time then. Like a busy man like yourself from Silicon Valley, I appreciate taking the time to talk to me and do this podcast. And by the way, Mountain View, you said it must be a sunny, nice place. I bet you also have some a nice environment, a nice life there. Yeah.
Well, first of all, like the pleasure is mine. I'm like glad to be here and thank you for having me. And
You're welcome.
Mountain View is awesome and really great. I mean, we have a saying like there is like a California sunshine tax, and
Oh,
that's for
very
a
nice.
reason. So it's really kind of awesome weather and just it's
Awesome,
really
man.
awesome.
I'm really
I like
happy.
it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy you like it, man. You deserve it. After all this work you did, everything I've read about you, you're more than deserving, my friend.
If
And
you say so.
yeah, dude, trust me. Let me say it for you, Sergey. We have been following each other on X for quite some time now, but I wasn't really aware of you. In the sense that what I mean by that, I didn't really look into your work or do some extensive research. You know what I mean. And it was until you sent me your book for, well, we'll talk about that in detail in a little bit. You sent me your book to read it, have a chat with you, maybe some feedback and all that. And I have to say, working with Vulkan and developing an engine with Vulkan for 5 years, is it? I don't remember. It is one of the best, if not the best, books I've read. And I'm not over exaggerating. I will tell you why. It was very obvious that the guy who wrote it was actually working with Vulkan, shipping games or building an engine or something like that. So that stood out because everything was carefully selected, and even the code examples were things that it felt like they were taken out of an engine or a game, like really practical stuff. So that was very obvious, Sergey, and that was the hook for me. And I was like, I'm going to research into this guy, and I found out you wrote more books. You wrote about Vulcan as well. So you're the author of multiple books, which is impressive. And then I was like, okay, who is this guy? Let's see. And I found out you also have a game engine that you built on your own. And then I found out that you also worked for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ubisoft RedLynx, which I think it's in,
Yes, that's correct.
is it Finland, Sergey?
It's in Helsinki, in Finland.
Helsinki,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've been around, man. And then I was like, okay, who is this guy? I mean, if you tell me that he was on board the Apollo 11 moon landing mission, I would believe it at this point. And anyway, long story short, Sergey, it's not surprising that you ended up where you are, Silicon Valley. And let's start with the first question. Now that we have onboarded everybody, I am very curious. How did all this came to be? What was your path in life? And you ended up all the way to Silicon Valley and having done all these amazing things. Can you talk about you a little bit?
Yeah, I will absolutely give it a try. So just you want it from very beginning, I guess.
Yes, or everything
And
you like. It's your time.
actually, it all started like more than 30 years ago. So it was around like 1992 when my grandpa actually bought me a first computer. It was one of those like first Soviet clones of the original IBM PC,
Yes.
like with like 640 kilobytes of RAM, no hard drive, and it was kind of just a
Yes.
super unusual machine for for the place I lived back in
Yes.
the days then, because it was kind of quite expensive, and it was kind of most of the people there like just bought for their kids something like this NAS system, like gaming
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
console, like sort of simple stuff, and having a real computer, even like a 10-year-old essentially, was something cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of like it felt special.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first year, I was just playing different games, like things like Pac-Man and those kind of stuff. That Tetris, obviously. But then, like, I just started asking questions like, uh, who makes these things? How to make that stuff? And that's when the whole journey started. So I would say I was doing different things of computer science in my career, but my passion was always some sort of like gaming technology. And I ended up at Ubisoft eventually, like just doing some really cool AAA games.
Oh man.
But that was kind of
Yes.
a long journey. And on the way, I was doing like different kinds of 3D graphics, but a lot of that was outside of the gaming industry. That was like industrial visualization and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then was like a whole. There was a whole kind of part in my life where I did this mobile graphics development, like Android back in the days when it really all just started, and we actually shipped the first 3D UI in the world on Android in
What?
2011.
Wow.
That was with SPB software, and I was working on the team which developed the 3D engine for that
Wow.
UI.
Dude.
That was super cool and super awesome. That's one of the projects actually I'm super proud of to be
Yeah,
part
man.
of.
Man, yeah, everything's impressive. But yeah, this as well. Can I ask you a small question? Sorry to interrupt you. Uh,
Absolutely.
you said you work with Android, and if I'm not mistaken, I even saw a book about Android as well that you've written. Or am I mistaken?
Two books actually. I have them right here. So it's the very first one.
Ah, yes, I saw this. Yeah.
This is the very first one, and it's kind of like the first baby. That
Yes.
was the most difficult
Ah,
one, and
dude.
in a sense, like it is special. Maybe like it was published like in 2013, so more than 12 years old.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like now, like a lot of those things are outdated just because how Google treats the Android ecosystem.
Yes.
Just like a lot of things like APIs, they come and go.
Yes.
However, like all this approach to like mobile software development, I think it's still valuable.
Yes.
And I still can recommend this book, but it just obviously will be like not that
Yeah.
dense on new information. Maybe like let's say like divide everything in half, but some like crucial ideas how to structure the mobile development is still there.
So,
Yeah, and that was the time when we actually developed this 3D UI for Android. I started Android in 2010, and the book was published in 2013. So it was basically just condensed, like brief glimpse in the past, how we did that, and what kind of like software engineering practices and software development approaches we took to do that. And I experimented a lot on the side with my own 3D engine design and just different
mm,
like throwaway attempts how to do things.
mm.
So it was all was like crystallized in the book. So in the sense, like that
I
was
feel you.
some special thing.
I feel you. Quite an impressive track record, Sergey. Truly.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you're done, we can talk about the elephant in the room, which is a very nice. This very nice book which I have here. Um, let me let me show it to the people as well. Uh, that's not it. Be more Hiano. No, that's not you. Arnold, that's not you. So you are here, my friend. That's the book. Oh, it's a big one as well. That's the book. It's
It's the biggest one so far.
it's massive and it's excellent. Vulkan 3D Graphics Rendering Cookbook. And I mentioned about the book that it's very obviously written by somebody who knows. It was obvious. And my first question, is you wrote this book. What sparked it, and what's the reader takeaway? Like, why did you write this?
Yeah, essentially two questions. I'll just tackle the second one first.
Yes, yes.
Um, well, it's the same question and the same answers for all the previous books. So when it all started, essentially the main driving force to do it was just to be in kind of like bored and annoyed, and I have to explain things to my coworkers, especially like new folks joining the team, explaining them how to do stuff. And I just the very first book was written with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, just I have this book, go read it over the weekend, and then come back, and then we will talk.
Nice.
And that was the motivation essentially throughout all these books I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is this 3D graphics. So I thought like a big gap with books like tutorials first, like on one side, like where you have really basic stuff, and you have essentially like this whole Safari Park of different examples, and you have no idea how to put them together.
Yes.
And on the other side, there are great books where you have modern and complicated algorithms described with all this math background and the formulas and some non-trivial implementation. And for that, you already have to be kind of seasoned professional, experienced. There's like real gaming engines and stuff. But there was pretty much nothing in between. So something that will show you how to
Mm-hmm.
bring together like different recipes and build something like that, which is kind of like it is still kind of like a toy implementation in a sense, right?
Yes.
But it just tries to build many components together and something that can render an image which is visually pleasing and resembles something that like more 3D engine like this computer graphics thing. So something more than just a small demo
Yes.
or a simple tutorial focused on just one feature. So that was an idea just to find some middle ground. We did actually a couple of attempts. So this was the first edition. Now it's the second edition. So we actually reworked many things.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's how we got to today.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And this the other guy, Alexei, I guess a friend from work, some co-worker.
Yeah,
Work. Yeah.
he is my friend and colleague. And
Ah,
yeah, actually, with this second book, he did like an amazing job of open sourcing this IGL library from Meta.
is that so?
And essentially, like he was like the driving force for that. And we were thinking, okay, we have this really kind of a serious production library released from
I'm
Meta.
happy
Can
with that.
we just reuse it to write some code for our book and essentially save us some time? And it was a saver because we just forked it and made it into something that can be used for the book.
Yeah.
This lightweight PK API. And that was awesome because like underneath it, there's a real production Vulkan implementation,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have to write like a completely new custom implementation from scratch for our book.
I see.
We can use something that is really kind of pretty much tested, used on mobiles, and we can build on that, and we don't have to spend too much time fixing bugs and doing all the kind of things. And that's the problem with many books actually when they write a completely new code base,
Exactly.
and it's kind of like it works, but it has a lot of corner cases when you run it on some like custom hardware, like laptops, something kind of weird.
Exactly, man.
And people have that,
Yeah.
obviously. And there's unexpected bugs and incompatibilities, like a lot of corner cases not handled and so on. So it's a disaster, basically. And we experienced that with our first book. So that was the code base written essentially from scratch just for the book. It was a disaster. And the second one, we just tried to, okay, we have this wrapper, let's put it to use, and just let's write some nicer demos using this code. I think that was frankly a better approach than the first edition, but
I
let's
think
see.
so. I think so. Yes, but definitely it's a great work. Great work, Sergey. And you know, even me. I mean, I'm not a Vulkan expert. I'm not at your level, but I've used it. I wrote an engine and all that, and I'm still scared about the idea of writing a book like that. And I was wondering if you could tell us insights about how it is to write a tech book like this, like the biggest challenges. It must be difficult. I mean, you told us some stuff already. If you want, you can expand on something.
Yeah, so when I myself started learning Vulkan,
Yes.
I was reading different books, so the very first books on Vulkan actually. And one of those, I think that was a Vulkan cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that was about like 600 pages. And you get the first triangle out on screen somewhere close to like page 500 or something like that. And the most difficult thing I would say in writing a book about Vulkan is just managing complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you stick to raw Vulkan, it's essentially like impossible because really you just waste 500 pages on something that's as trivial as a triangle.
Exactly.
And you never have any possibility to cover anything non-trivial, any kind of complex stuff. So managing complexity is difficult, and it's difficult on
Okay.
both sides. I mean, like being too simple and just too direct and just using the raw Vulkan API is one problem,
Mm-hmm.
but being like devoured with all these abstractions and trying like abstract away too many things is another problem,
Yes.
because with this essentially you will be writing not about the API itself but about your abstraction.
Exactly.
And that's kind of comments that we received from the first book. So essentially, we were too ambitious. We started writing the code from scratch, like the entire Vulkan backend, and tried to do like this declarative style renderer with some sort of a frame graph built in. And we never had time to finish that. So the publisher was going, hey, that was initially planned for 6 months. It took 18 months. Guys, please hurry up. Let's publish it. So it was a constant pressure from publisher. And I can understand, obviously, just delaying it from 6 months to 18 months is unacceptable in any way. So in this sense, like this released code from Meta, the open source code was a lifesaver.
Yeah, man, awesome. Glad it worked out, and I think it did work out. Um, your books cover OpenGL and Vulkan, and I was wondering how do they compare? And basically, what I'm asking is why would somebody choose Vulkan, for example, over OpenGL, being that Vulkan is more complex and all that? You know what I mean?
This answer is super easy. I mean, if you are essentially like, if anyone doing 3D graphics is asking this question,
yes,
they probably should choose OpenGL because like you use Vulkan only when you specifically know why.
Yes.
Other than that, for any kind of like scientific visualization where performance is not like number one issue or priority, just go with OpenGL and just implement your stuff. But when you put in like graphics as a kind of like one of those unique important features,
yes,
when performance matters, when the mobile ecosystem matters, you have to do Vulkan. You have no other choice, basically, especially on mobile.
I agree as well. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's kind of like on mobile. That's just like Metal and Vulkan. OpenGL is phasing out. Google already announced that's going to be deprecated.
Oh, okay. That's so, interesting. So it's being deprecated. So I guess new developers might go with Vulkan in the future. And I was wondering, what if somebody, some hardcore guy or some hardcore aspiring guy, wants to start with Vulkan? Do you have any advice on somebody who wants to start with Vulkan, even though it's complicated? What could you say to them?
First, start with tutorials and iterate between reading stuff and just writing your code.
Yes.
Try first doing something simple and just read more books. When try doing something more complicated and just iterate as needed until you get to a level where you can write an engine that's normal pass.
Yes.
And try to master any complex subject.
Yeah, exactly. And when you say simple, I imagine you assume try rendering a triangle for people to understand. Maybe triangle is...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. On the first day, you should be focusing on rendering a triangle, right? So this is
exactly,
yeah. Progress.
Yes, exactly.
And then just adjust your pace accordingly.
And I think, I agree 100%. And I think what's a triangle, I think, is how many hundreds lines of code in Vulkan? 500? 600? I don't remember. It's a lot, isn't it?
It's about like 1,000 something, actually. It depends.
So, yes, that's definitely more than enough. You're correct. Start with a triangle, see how you do it, continue from there. I agree. And now I have to ask a question. I can't wait for this one. It's my favorite, I think. I mean, everything is interesting. But you maintain an engine. You worked on an engine called Linderdaum or Linderdaum. How did you call it?
Linderdaum?
Linderdaum engine. It's an open source 3D game engine. And I'm so curious about its origin, inspiration, anything about it. How did it start, Sergey?
Well, that's a long story. So I think it started around 2002.
Yeah.
And that started as a kind of like internal need to do something game development oriented. But I was working in completely different areas. So as industrial visualization.
Yes.
So and that was a way to just fulfill that desire to do something game development related.
I see.
And it was a great experience. Essentially, like being able to touch like different components of a real gaming engine and just do like that. I was taking inspiration from different open source projects in those days. Like was Crystal Space,
yes,
Ogre 3D,
right,
and those kind of engines like 20 years ago, essentially.
Yep.
And then, like many years later, so this thing became a kind of prototyping platform. So I was just using it to do some kind of rapid prototyping of some ideas I have. So when I don't have to write like low-level code, I just can plug it in and just write some stuff. It's not like actively developed anymore for the past like 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just
I see. It was a project that
but
happened.
still it's still I use it as a sandbox to do some experiments and stuff.
Classic, awesome. It's very awesome. And by the way, you wrote it. You said it's not actively developed. Does that mean it's OpenGL? The backend is OpenGL, or you managed to sneak in Vulkan in there?
The Vulkan is there.
Of course.
It's there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's there.
I'm curious. How long did it take you to add Vulkan in your engine? I'm assuming it was OpenGL initially. That's my assumption, and then you added Vulkan, right?
Yeah, so that was actually a long story. So that it had two OpenGL backends. So one was this OpenGL ES,
Yes.
essentially OpenGL ES 3.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one was a desktop OpenGL, essentially OpenGL 4.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So using all this like latest EasyDO, approaching zero driver overhead techniques
Yes.
and stuff. And from OpenGL 4.6, the transition to Vulkan is easier.
Yes.
I would say it was about 4 months actually to add something that actually can render
Interesting.
pretty much all of the features,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 4 more months to just polish and fix
Makes
some
sense.
of those bugs and things. So
Interesting.
something between 4 and 8 months actually.
Still quite fast. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting for people who work on projects and all that. You know, if they're thinking of switching, to get an idea. And where were we? Yes, I was wondering, and we'll leave the engine in a bit. Last question about it. I'm curious if it has any cool features, rendering features, apart from the APIs. Is there anything that you're proud of, something cool we can mention that we think will get people interested?
Yeah, what I would say that's the coolest feature there is not graphics. So we started the engine as like in 2002 with my friend,
Yes.
and we designed a reflection system, and we took our inspiration from Unreal Engine back in the days.
All right.
Unreal Engine was known to have this Unreal script thing, and it was possible to write this Unreal script like classes derived from C++ classes of the engine and going back and forth.
Yes.
And it was like very cool reflection system when you can mark like properties in C++ code and access them from the script, and it was awesome. And we made something pretty much similar. So we made a compiler, a virtual machine, and
All right.
a reflection system. And in the end, like 20 years later, we essentially dropped the compiler and the virtual machine. But the reflection system proved to be super useful.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like allows you to tweak any parameters of your code from outside. Basically, you just write C++ code, put some markup, like I want this field to be exposed as a property for serialization. And then this internal machinery just manages that and makes it possible to trivially load and save all these complex interdependent structures of objects in memory to file and load them back. That was awesome in the sense like productivity tool. And as I say, that one of the biggest reasons I still use that as a sandbox, because like graphics is easy in the sense you can just write a full-featured Vulkan renderer in 4 months, basically,
Yes.
and it will be really like high-quality full-featured renderer. But these low-level systems like reflection stuff and working with that, first of all, it doesn't change as much as graphics API. So it's a long-term investment. Basically, you build it once and then you can evolve it for like quarter of a century. And it's just like, it just works. Like there is no problem with that. I think like I will have like a really, really deep look into that again because of the C++ reflection, which is C++ 26.
Yes.
I think I will just go back and redo some of those parts, re-implement how we do the serialization. But the previous thing served us for 25 years, and I'm proud of that. We did it together with my friend, so it was Victor, and he actually just really kind of inspired and coded many ideas into that system.
That's awesome, man.
And how to do stuff. It was like many iterations. I think it was like 3 or 4 iterations when they really kind of rewrote stuff. And it was like a lot of this like aha moments when we say like we have like something that fully works, and then we say all of this is essentially like there is a better way. And because was just like our pet project on the side, we have this luxury of rewriting this
Yeah,
thing
going
and
well.
just doing it together. So essentially like shaping it. And yeah, it's there and it's still there for 25 years later.
And last question, a small one. When you say it's there, you mean it's on GitHub, your website? Where can people find the work?
The source code, I think the old source code is there, so it's on my website, it's downloadable.
Okay, good.
But I don't think I uploaded any open source code of that in the past 6 years.
Ah, I see. Cool.
So the latest one is 2019, 2020. But when it comes to reflection, it's pretty much the same thing. There were no real changes. So in the last 5-6 years, I was more focused on adding some graphics stuff,
Yep.
and just tweaking different things.
I see.
So all low level stuff is still there and it's still open source.
I see, Sergey. Cool. Another question. I'm wondering, we talked about already books you've written, engines you did with a friend, reflections, having a full-time job. It's quite a few stuff. And I'm wondering, how do you juggle, working on an engine, doing professional work, writing books? How do you manage this? How do you do all this? Do you have a method?
Yeah, so the secret is just to share a lot of stuff between each of these activities. So what I said, like when Alexei pushed Meta to release this library open source, I was doing this Vulkan backend for that library.
Okay.
And essentially, like that's like a lot of code shared between my main work and this books writing and my hobby activity. So without this, I wouldn't say it will be possible.
I see. So you try to do little smart optimizations like that to minimize the
Absolutely. Yeah. So essentially, you're just working on the same piece of code from like 3 different directions. So you just do that like 8 hours per day during the week, and then you just write books based on that. And then in the weekend, you experiment with that on your own, doing something weird stuff which you cannot do in the office. That's the secret sauce.
It makes sense now. Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you. Yes. Now, I noticed that you also have a community. For example, for your book, you have a Discord server. So you have a community forming around your work. Maybe it's around your engine, maybe around your books. There's definitely a community there. And I was wondering if you have had any memorable contributions, anything meaningful where you're like, damn, if this community was not there, I would not have come up with this idea on my own, or to improve this or fix this, whatever it is about your book or anything. Have you had any moments like that where the community truly contributed?
This community is super helpful, and this happens every time with every previous books that we published. The community brings a lot of questions about compatibility, and they find like a lot of issues with different kind of thinking systems that you cannot think of actually on yourself, and you have to go and fix that. In a sense, like it just makes the whole thing like more stable, more like bulletproof, and that's something like it's very difficult to do on your own unless you do like this at a company with a lot of like a testing department, but basically just a lot of people helping with that, and you have access to very different systems that you can deploy on, because otherwise you are stuck in a bubble with just maybe your desktop and your laptop, and that's it. Like you don't have any other options. But when you have a community, you have like hundreds of different devices, and something immediately pops up, and you have to go and fix that, and you have to find a way how to debug that, how to get those devices, and find a solution. And that's great, and just like adds so much to the whole code base, and just makes it more real, more stable.
Yes, and I agree with you 100% because I've experienced it with my little engine. There is a little Discord server I have, and I've experienced exactly the same thing you're saying now. You think your code is super robust, no matter how much you work on it, it's going to explode at some point, and it's super valuable to have the community. So I totally agree with you. It might be the best thing.
Absolutely, and your community is actually quite big already, so just...
500 people or something, something like that, yeah.
I thought it's more than 1,000. Yeah, that's absolutely impressive. Yeah, just absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And the work you are doing on the engine is actually super cool. I mean, yeah, you have the features which are present in some real like AAA engines, and you iterate on them.
Yes.
and this looks amazing. I mean, I'm
Thank you, man.
judging just by visual results that
Yeah.
you post on Twitter, on YouTube,
Yep.
and that's awesome. That's
Sergey, appreciate it,
just
man.
essentially like a very notable example how much a single person can do if he's dedicated and focused on doing the great work. That's impressive.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it, especially coming from you. Sometimes, something like that, just a good word, it gives a lot of motivation to keep going. So, thank you. Appreciate it, Sergey. And now I'm gonna expand a little bit more about tech talk and dev life. And I'm really curious, and I'm sure many people will be curious about you. You worked at Ubisoft RedLynx, and you said you worked on a couple of AAA titles as well. So I'm super curious, as a game developer mainly, myself, what kind of beautiful ideas you help bring to life?
Well, so that was, I would say that the most interesting idea back in those days was
Mm-hmm.
bindless rendering,
Yes.
and this transitioning the whole thing to bindless was very interesting,
All right.
and that's something like greatly influenced me like later in my career since then.
Uh huh.
Maybe like if you watched my presentations from like Vulkanized from SIGGRAPH, it was all about bindless rendering in a way, but not on desktops, but on mobile. Because like on desktops, like Ubisoft and others, they just transitioned to that many years ago, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
But right now, the mobile industry is just touching that, and mobile GPUs are getting faster for this indirect memory loads, and they're capable to do bindless rendering.
Absolutely.
And that is something that I was doing, and that is something that I really kind of took from this desktop
Hmm.
game development that tried to apply into this like low
Cool
power
connects.
devices and
Yeah.
just
It all
try to do
connects.
some cool stuff.
I see. Very cool. And do you remember you worked on a lot of cool technical stuff? Can you also share with us the games, the titles of the games you worked on, so we can flex a little bit, so they know how cool you are?
Yeah, so this at Ubisoft, that was an unannounced IP. This was a new IP.
Ah, okay.
Unfortunately, it's unpublished, and as far as I
Okay.
know, it's cancelled.
Yes.
Ubisoft experiencing some financial issues, so I don't really know what eventually happened to those IP.
It's okay.
But that was based on the Anvil engine,
Uh huh. Ah, I see. I see.
and
Pretty
the
cool.
same engine that powers Assassin's Creed.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I
And
remember
it
it.
was
It's quite awesome.
a really cool, like open world project. One of those one of those biggest projects in human history. I would like to say that really kind of like a
Wow.
high-end AAA
Wow.
content-rich project.
Wow. And for
Yeah, so it's very sad that they closed it, but still was a great experience working with technology.
I've been there, Sergey, with Sony. I was working for a project on a project for 4 years. Put my heart and soul into it, and then it's all gone. For how long did you work on this massive project? Can you tell us that at least?
That was just slightly less than 1 year. So I
Uh huh. I see.
joined in 2021,
I see.
and I left for the United States in February.
A man on a mission, a nomad. Cool. And
Absolutely, absolutely.
yes, that's the way, my friend. I like it. That's what I do at least in my life as well. And about the engine, Junior, you mentioned. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I always love talking about engines. Junior, I think, is a fork of Anvil. Anvil, you said. Anvil is a fork of Junia, which is a fork of CryEngine or something like that. Am I wrong? Can you tell us about the?
I'm not sure about that. I think like that engine has like at least 15 years of in-house history.
Okay, it's different thing.
So if even if it is a fork of anything that was like many years ago, essentially like just going back in
Yeah.
early 2000s.
Yes.
But like I mean, it just went to the state where it just like
Mm-hmm.
really like custom in-house engine, which is like so custom that it pretty much has nothing to do with
Yep.
all of those things of the past. So it's just like
Yeah.
completely a thing of its own.
Yep. Sergey, something more of script, but I'm curious about you now. Did it at any point in your life were you ever scared changing countries, going to different continent, or you were just like a man on a mission, just going after what you love and pursuing, trying to become who you can truly become, or did you feel fear at some point, moving to a different continent and all that? I'm curious about how you experience reality in that regard.
Uh, there was no fear. I mean, like I changed like how many 4 countries I think. So I worked in the Netherlands, then
Yes.
I worked in Austria,
Yes.
I worked in London a little bit, then Helsinki in Finland, and now in the Bay Area. And there was no fear; it was just curiosity and some interesting projects.
That's it.
And I wasn't essentially like picking countries. I was just picking cool projects. It was like really cool job opportunities and working on something interesting. And I always ended up working on graphics no matter where I went. And
I see.
that was fun. I would say it was a pretty smooth ride actually. No fear, no nothing like that. Only just positive emotion.
Yep.
And just embracing whatever is there and just working on cool
I
stuff.
love it. I love it. And I think I was expecting the answer. You do seem like I said, a man on a mission. It's beautiful. And I think that's it. Even if somebody listening now or watching, they should remember that they shouldn't be afraid and try to pursue their goals and self-actualize, become who they can truly become. And then you get beautiful things happen. Sergey, you've experienced some already. I hope people.
Yeah, in the sense that it's all it was natural. Yeah, just just working on something, and the project is just evolving. We had some releases, and then out of the blue, someone just shows up and says like, "Oh, we have like just really cool opportunity, and it looks like you're perfect fit." And I'm looking into that and saying just, "Oh, damn, that's just really sounds like a perfect fit," and just tell me more about that.
Yes.
And that's how it usually starts. And just like every few years or something like that. And besides that, I was in this startup industry where companies come and go. So in the sense, it was something like an extra motivation.
Yes.
Because I just survived like many kind of like startups going defunct, acquired, like people laid off. And it just creates this atmosphere of like this movement. So it's you don't getting stuck to your workplace. You just really are forced sometimes to change jobs.
Yes.
And that was like initial driving force. And then I was saying that's not bad. It just like allows me to participate in different projects. And that's how it's ended up in the Bay Area here.
Yep. And I like how you said that you work on cool stuff. You just do your thing. And people might come suddenly and they're like, oh, we have a cool position or a cool project. Things happen. And that reminded me, a small tangent, sir, if you allow me. It reminded me of a talk from Steve Jobs at Stanford, where he said, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. Basically, what he meant is, do what you want to do, like what you're doing now, and looking back, then you see how everything fit together, how your engine or your interest in that or your work at that allowing you to then get this job or somebody else to approach you and so on. So I think that's what's happening here, and it's beautiful to see it in action.
I remember that speech actually. It was like about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
At the time, I was like really unexperienced, but thinking like, wow, okay, like just a cool speech. But now, just looking back and saying like, maybe that's actually the only way. So just like that's how you do it.
Yeah, I think so, Sergey. And I've seen it with Ramon as well, the previous guest, also highly accomplished. And believe it or not, they seem to be similar kind of people. They all same kind of mentality. Just go with it. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Yeah. And now a little bit more generic. If you have to share anything, of course, in the 20 or more years that you've been in the industry doing cool stuff, I was wondering if there has been any pivotal realization, like what we talked about now, or something that changed how you approach coding, work, life, anything in general. Like, basically, Sergey, some sort of realization, a lesson you can share with us. It's a difficult question.
That's a cool question, actually. I'm just like, first thing I try to do is just looking not forward 20 years, but backwards.
Yes.
And thinking what changed since like 2005. And there was so many predictions, like things will get automated in a way. And those predictions like failed. So we still do software engineering pretty much the same way we did it in 2005.
Yes.
Now we have this AI, vibe coding things and everything. And it's obvious that that will be part of the job and that will take like some part of the job. But I'm a believer that in 20 years there still will be some form of coding. And I will just tell you the reason why. Because like even if this like AI things, they become like superhuman and super automated, someone still has to explain to them what you want to build. And then just like explaining that formally is nothing but programming.
Yes.
So there will be a place for some form of software engineering in 20 years. I'm a strong believer. But more realistically, I would say many things are kind of, they have inertia. and many things will be done the way they're done today, especially those things like related to safety and all these things. Like there's a lot of software like in our cars, in our
Yeah,
trains,
everywhere,
airplanes,
everywhere.
even like kind of these nuclear power stations are powered by C and C++.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I think those things will be there in 20 years. They will not change.
I think you're bang on, and I think yeah, that's like I imagine AI the same way. I don't see it as it's coming to replace us, everything will end and all that. I think it's a tool, and the smart thing to do is realize that and use the tool to do your work. Like it's exactly what you say. To it will just take part of it. That's all.
Absolutely. I believe that the productivity will increase, and these tools will
I
be
know.
just a great part of that, just
Yes,
allowing like great engineers to be even greater and just build even cooler
dude.
products.
Yeah,
And there is a notion like that it would be possible to do many things when you kind of just have a very small team or like many kind of like one person developer, and you will be able to do a complete product, much better product. You can create some content, write some code, even in the areas you don't initially understand, and use these AI tools to help you
I know.
with that. And that would be a great time.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to see that actually.
Dude, you get it. I'm 100% with you, and this is what I think what's happening. It's a productivity boost, and I think that we can take what you said and scale it even more. I think because of AI, we will see the first I don't know billion-dollar companies, which is not like an army of people anymore, but it might be a couple of dudes because they have this massive productivity boost. We might see things that haven't happened before because there is all this compute now. So I'm
Oh,
really
absolutely, absolutely. And
yeah.
what we see right now, actually, that we have a lot of like use cases for this AI, which are kind of decided long ago, so that they just like automating existing stuff.
Yes.
But we haven't seen many like completely new usage scenarios, and I think that that would be the most interesting part. So, as with previous technologies, maybe like in 5, 10 years, that will be tremendous growth in some like completely new ideas, like the ideas in the sense of like real inventions,
Mm-hmm.
which we would utilize this AI infrastructure and make completely new things possible. And maybe that would be a great time to have some new cool startups and changing of the ecosystem. Looking
Exactly.
forward to see that because like the past experience shows that like, all the previous technologies, they first automated something and then completely new ways to use them emerged, and they just completely changed the
You're right.
landscape.
Yes. Yes. And I like the way you think. At least I agree with it. It's more correct. But yeah, there are opportunities. And that's the mindset, Sergey. Not a pessimistic mindset. A positive
I'm
mindset.
embracing it. I'm just
Yes.
really looking forward positively and thinking like the software engineers will be there. They will be more productive and
Exactly,
there
man.
will be like much more very interesting work to do.
Exactly. It's only opening up new avenues. So, Sergey, let me see. Yes. Uh, Another thing, you do the work that you do. You work on so many things, books, full-time job, and all that. Then there is the other thing of how do you keep up with graphics programming trends and new techniques and all that. And, like, do you, I don't know, read books or say I'm gonna have to read a paper or two papers a week to keep in with the trends? Do you have an approach to stay up to date, or your job naturally allows you to stay up to date with all the latest cool stuff that you do?
I would say, frankly, I never did anything specific to do that,
Mm-hmm.
besides just making that my hobby. So that's
Mm.
really just like when I have to do something, I think thinking, oh, I have to just relax to play around with something. I go and code some stuff. Sometimes I just like some utility to just make my work simpler. Sometimes I just playing around with some new algorithm, graphics, something adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never like just forcing myself to read anything and just keeping that mindset. Oh, I have to just read some new books to keep up. No, it's just like watching some presentation from some conference and like listen something. Oh, that's an interesting, cool approach. Maybe I can try to implement it myself and see how it works. And it always was like that. So just like
Yeah,
trying to implement something, no matter what. I never thought like if it's kind of important for like
I
uh,
see.
for big picture, like for my work. It never mattered. It was just like curiosity and just doing something like in the evenings and on weekends.
Yes, and now that you say it, it doesn't surprise me because I'm like, yeah. This dude has been doing it for over 20 years or how long. And yeah, I think you need to truly love it because you have to be able to do something, man, for so long at such a level. You truly have to like it, like it's a hobby. It's nothing you force. So it does make sense, actually, now that you mention it. Like, of course, it would have been this way. Um, yeah. More generic, kind of the ending questions, Sergey. Uh, if you had a time machine, you could go back and meet the young Sergey, the aspiring Sergey. Would you have any advice to give to yourself that you think would be valuable, and as a result, might help other kids, other young people watching us now?
Wow. If you just like tell me that I can advise just one thing and go like, let's say 10 years ago, I
Yeah,
would just say myself to buy a lot of AMD stock. That would be probably the most impactful advice like in this.
I
Yeah.
like you, man. Yeah.
Seriously, just I'd say like going back and think that the biggest mistake I've done as an engineer
Mm-hmm.
is just probably overcomplicating things.
Mm,
So essentially, when
that's
I
it.
started, I was just doing a lot of like this extra complexity, and I like learned a lot of like this design patterns and stuff, like different features of the language, and then just I tried to apply this like everything all together and like all at once, basically. And it was kind of like a messy result,
Yes.
convoluted and unusable, and just like that wasted a lot of time, like of my time and just like of everyone's time around me. And that was one biggest mistake. I think like this mistake is just a lot of people still do it, like essentially like new graduates, and they have all this fresh knowledge and they want to apply that.
Exactly.
And keeping things simple in engineering, I believe that it's still important. I still do some over engineering.
Yeah.
That's obvious. Like it just, but I hope that's much less compared to what I've done
Yep.
20 years ago.
But you definitely see the value in simplicity. I agree with you. And I had the same, and I concluded the same. And when I say I had the same, coming out of academia, right after the uni, Sergey, they had brainwashed, if that's the right word, my mind with all this theory, all this design patterns and diagrams and this and that and so on. And then you try to make something and you overcomplicate it. And that's gonna come back to bite you. The more moving parts, the more complicated stuff you make, the more difficult they become to maintain and grow and all that, as you know. So,
Absolutely. Sometimes we
mm,
actually lose the sight of our goal. Like we have some like business goal to ship something, to do something, and instead we focus on like completely different things. Yeah, those might be interesting, but this is not something that brings us closer to the actual product.
exactly,
And
exactly.
just like making a solution in this abstracted, obscure ways is not the way to go. This is like I would say like guilty as charged. I've done this many times,
Yes,
but now at least I just try to put like real effort into like recognizing those things and
yes,
just pushing myself away from doing like some extra stuff that we are not going to need.
exactly.
Uh, yeah,
Uh,
so if I can recommend that to myself 20 years ago, I think that would
that would
have
be
some
that
Taurus.
and the AMD stocks we said, which is very wise. Oh, you can know stuff and also be rich.
The stock part is much simpler, so probably like
I like it. Okay, so um, what is it? Yeah. So I'm curious. Do you have any future plans or personal projects? You something stuff you plan to do, or you're the kind of guy that goes with the flow?
on a bigger scale, it will be going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
I have some ideas for like just working on the next books, and
Mm,
it looks like there will be the third edition of the current one at
this
some
one.
point.
Yeah.
I already have some ideas like which way to go, how
Yeah.
to shape it, remove some stuff, add some stuff, just like evolve it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an idea to go with a different kind of Vulkan book, like a graphics book, like a smaller one,
Mm-hmm.
and self-publishing it and just making like something focused on Vulkan in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just trying to bring together different tutorials and techniques essentially, and showing how to build some actual graphics
Yes.
in as few pages as possible. That's the idea. So I don't know like how
Mm-hmm.
much time
Mm-hmm.
it will
Mm-hmm.
take to actually put this idea into
Mm-hmm.
some like actual pages and publish it. But at least it's something I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, at some point you mentioned to me on X if I have any ideas about what other cool Vulkan things would be interesting to add in a book, so on. I haven't forgotten about this. I will try to come up with something at some point and give you something. But already it's quite good.
Thank you, and you're mostly welcome with this kind of things.
Thank you, man.
Maybe you want to become one of those reviewers on our books.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Absolutely. I'm doing all this Vulkan engine stuff. So if you think there is any value you can extract from it,
Maybe one day we can write a book together.
why not? Yes. There are many opportunities, my friend. Exactly. The only thing is, I think I will not be able to keep up with you. That's the only thing I'm afraid.
Come on.
No, it's a bit fine. Just joking, just joking.
Thank you.
No worries, man. My pleasure. And last question, Sergey. The last question is the most difficult. I'm just joking. No, it's the most easy. The last question is, where can our listeners or viewers find more about your work, who you are? You know, they made this. We'll see this and we'll be, okay, Sergey is an amazing guy. Where can I find more? Where can we send them?
Yeah, you said that's the most easy question. I say it's most difficult.
Oh, really?
And
Ah,
you know, just I answered like all the previous question and was like pretty confident what to say.
yeah.
And right now, I really don't know exactly what to say.
You know
That's the
what?
most difficult question.
Interesting how you destroyed all the difficult ones, and you cannot do this. But don't worry, I will do a lot of editing and all this stuff. So I will put all of this, all of the links, the engine, everything will be there. Worry not. It was more like a nice closing question. And with that, believe it or not, we're already 51 minutes in. And what I want to say is this was an amazing chat. You are an awesome guy. It's really inspiring to talk to you. I've learned a lot already. Others will as well, I'm sure. And I wish the best with whatever you do, the best for everything future thing you do. And because you're going to be doing stuff, I'm sure we might meet again and we might do another chat.
Thank you, Panos. Likewise, it was great talking to you, and thank you for your questions and your energy.
Thank you very much, mate. Take care, man. Bye.
Take care.